My name is Quaggersall, and if you're like me, you're probably super excited about the new EU4 DLC. One of the most exciting features about Leviathan is the new monuments feature. We're going to take a look at every single one of them, where they're at, and what they do in the game. Check the link in the description for a spreadsheet for all the monuments, their modifiers, locations, requirements, etc. And a quick shout out to Red Hawk, another YouTuber who helped me immensely in my research for this video. He had a spreadsheet from the Paradox streams that got me started, and then I used the game's own files to fill in the holes. Really do check him out though, because he has some unique content. He's editing well, he's growing, his content's getting better, and I think it's fun to watch. Before we get started with the list, we need to talk about how monuments work. There are 49 monuments in the game. 43 of them are present on the map at the game's start. 3 others exist but are in uncolonized provinces, so they aren't visible. And the last 3 are in Panama, Suez, and the Kiel canals. We'll talk about canals and how they function in the monument system towards the end of the video. Now, these are monuments. We're in Paris. There are 2 monuments here. The monuments function as a special building that exists outside of building slots, then has various levels in which you can upgrade it to. Most of the monuments start unbuilt. Some start at tier 1, or things like Notre Dame will start at the tier 2 significant level. It goes noteworthy, significant, magnificent levels. You can upgrade them or construct them new for 1,000 ducats, and it will take 10 years. Then you're able to use money or manpower to accelerate that by about 2 years. So 1,500 ducats plus your initial 1,000 ducats will get you to build a monument within a day if you can click the buttons fast enough. All right, now that the quick and dirty explanation is out of the way, let's get on to the list. I intend this video to be an exhaustive guide to the monuments as they exist at launch in EU4 at 1.31. So I'm going to put links in the description so that hopefully the time frame comes up at the bottom of the video. But you should be able to use that spreadsheet or the timestamps in the description to find the monument that you're looking for. If you spot any mistakes, things I've missed, things like that, please let me know in the comments below. I will be trying to keep the spreadsheet up to date, even if I am unable to edit the video. In the interest of time, I'm only mentioning requirements for the monuments such as province, culture, religion, national religion, that sort of thing. If the monument has one, it's out of place and that sort of thing. I've done my best to test out a bunch of scenarios to check these requirements, but some of those are hidden to me, I would imagine. But check out the spreadsheet if you really want to see those. And keep in mind that these numbers will probably, or more likely than not, be balanced at some point, maybe outright removed in some of the cases. So this will change, but this is a good setup for what we have at the launch in 1.31. First up is Ait Benhaddou in Demnat in Morocco. Historically, is a fortified city called a Kassar or a Grim. These cities were for defense and trade, and the ideas and buffs from the monument reflect this. At tier 1, you get local defensiveness and caravan power. At tier 2, you get local defensiveness and caravan power buffed, and then a trade efficiency added. This is the level that it starts at the beginning of the game, the significant tier. And then finally, if you upgrade it to magnificent level, you're going to trade that local defensiveness for fort defense for the whole country. The trade efficiency goes up to 10%, the caravan power goes up to 33%, and then global trade power is added 5%. I think this is a really nice monument. It can be really useful for Morocco, useful for the Iberians if they take over the area, that sort of thing, but it's not super overpowered like some of the ones that we're about to see. The Iberians have a greater prize, though, closer to home. Here in Granada, we have Alhambra. This was a historical palace and fortress complex built on an old Roman fortification under the Nasirid dynasty of Granada. The noteworthy bonus that it starts with is 1 Diplo reputation, income from vassals, and admin efficiency. This gets upgraded by adding a Diplo relation slot and increasing the income from vassals and admin efficiency to 10%. Level 3 magnificent tier. The income from vassals become 25%, and the admin efficiency goes all the way up to 15%. This is 15% admin efficiency in the early 1500s, or even before 1500 if you focus it really hard as Spain. It's kind of crazy strong in my opinion. Shifting from arguably one of the strongest monuments to arguably one of the weakest, we have Ambras Castle here in Echtal in the Austrians. All it gives you is a local defensiveness plus 15% and a nobility loyalty of 5. That goes up to local defensiveness, so it's 25%, and nobility loyalty of 10. And then you add in local defensiveness in the area and a yearly 0.5 prestige. The nobility loyalty goes up to 15. Now, keep in mind, that's not nobility loyalty equilibrium. That's just one shot of loyalty. Obviously, this is made for like some sort of fort wall here, but in my opinion, this is a little underwhelming, especially after what we just saw. They really should do something like maybe inflation reduction, maybe a better defensiveness thing, maybe even a mill point. There's some monuments with admin points. There's actually a couple. So yeah, this kind of needs a buff, or some of the other ones need to be reduced, in my opinion. Halfway across the world, but back into the very strong category, we have Angkor Wat. To this day, Angkor Wat in the province of Angkor in Khmer at the beginning of the game is the largest religious facility in the world, over 400 acres. And the bonuses receives are pretty straightforward. You get tech costs minus 5, 10, and 15%, and then monthly karma if you happen to be Buddhist. 5, 10, and 15% as well. This monument is one of the first that we're looking at that has requirements. They're already met at the beginning of the game, but this province, the province itself, not your nation, has to either be Hindu, Sikh, one of the Dharmic religions, one of those two, or it has to be Theravadan Buddhist. It can't be Mahayana Buddhist, it can't be Shinto, Confucian, any sort of Christian, any sort of Muslim, those sorts of things. It will not work unless you have Hindu, Sikh, or Theravadan Buddhist in this province. Another seriously underpowered monument, the Bagan Temples, represents the nearly 10,000 temples that were constructed in this area during the pagan kingdom. You get local missionary strength and karma at first and second tier. It goes up a little bit. It starts in the second tier, and you can eventually get local missionary strength in the area. This is a really underwhelming one, in my opinion. It must be a Theravadan Buddhist for it to work. So why does it need to convert itself? Because you'd either be turning it off or you don't even have it to turn it on. It just seems confusing to me, and this one really seems like a waste of money. All right, here it is, the one everybody's freaking out about, Baku Ateshgah, or the Fire Temple of Baku. It's in the province of Shirvan, and it is required that you have religion in the province of Zoroastrian. You don't even have to be a Zoroastrian yourself. You just have to have Zoroastrian in the province. It starts with discipline plus 2.5, land fire damage of 5%. This upgrades to discipline 5, culture conversion minus 5, and land fire plus 10. And then it ends up as 10% discipline minus 10% culture conversion cost, 15% land fire damage, and negative 10 fire damage received, which is kind of crazy. And I'm starting to understand why Zoroastrian doesn't have any military things in its holy sites mechanic for the actual religion. Even though this is one of those holy sites, obviously you're going to do this, and that's going to be your military. The Borobudur Temple is located in Tochigi in the Majapahit Empire at the beginning of the game. Now, this is a Buddhist temple from the 7th century, and in my opinion, it's quite underwhelming. Monthly autonomy change in the area that scales, get some culture conversion costs, and then eventually a max promoted culture. The weird thing here is that it must be Theravadan Buddhist in the province for you to be able to activate this temple, even though it's a Mahayana Buddhist temple historically. I've noticed that Mahayana Buddhism gets the shaft in these monuments. It's always Theravadan Buddhism that all these monuments take. And this monument here needs a Dharmic religion in the province. So you can't use both at the same time, which really sucks because they're both not that good. Now we come to the Buddha statues in Bamyan. These were 2 large Buddha statues carved into the rocks in what is now Afghanistan. This is interesting because this is the first one that we've looked at that you can actually move. These statues can be moved if you conquer the province, or even if you own it as the Timurids, you can move it to your capital. But they need Theravadan Buddhism in the province they're in for them to function. They start at tier 1, but it's off. You get missionary strength and culture conversion costs. Eventually get a missionary and up the other 2 bonuses. And then at the end, you just get those bonuses up a little higher. I think that's pretty nice, actually. It's cool that this can get moved around, that you can go grab somebody's Buddha statues and then bring them home. That's a really cool mechanic. It's a little underwhelming, but it's good for like one face or anything Buddhist that you're doing. I think this is a nice addition. All right, Chichen Itza is a pre-Columbian city built by the Maya people in the Yucatan Peninsula of what is now Mexico. It's famous for the Temple of Kukulkan, or the pyramid that's depicted here, that the Spanish called El Castillo, or the castle. Now, it starts at Tier 1 with manpower recovery and recruitment time, nobility, estate loyalty. Then you get both of those upped pretty substantially, and then it ends with just upping those again. It's actually not bad. I like that you can recruit your armies really quickly. I think it's overshadowed by both the one that the Aztecs get and especially the one that the Incas get, that we'll talk about in a little bit. Over to Zimbabwe. The city of Khami was actually established in about 1450 from what I've read, but they started as a Tier 1 here. It gets local defensiveness plus 15%. This upgrades a little bit and a tech cost modifier is added. And then this upgrades a little bit more and a cost to fabricate claims is added. Now, some of the things we looked at, this is actually quite modest. But I think if they were all balanced this way, this would actually be pretty good. And I like that it has different things and they complement to some extent. Maybe some inflation reduction would help him here. But I don't know how much they want to buff or if they really just need to debuff some of the bigger ones. Back to Europe, we have the Cologne Cathedral. In my opinion, the epitome of Gothic architecture in medieval Europe. And apparently it's Germany's most visited landmark as well. It remains the seat of the Archbishopric of Cologne to this day and was quite influential at the time of EU4. The bonuses for the Cologne Cathedral include yearly papal influence and cost of enforcing religion through war in the noteworthy tier that it starts at. In the significant tier, it's yearly papal influence plus 1, cost of enforcing down to 25, and the clergy like you a little bit more. And then the last one, those are all 3 buffed. This could be paired with the Great Crusade reform, or the Global Crusade government reform that Cologne gets. And I think that means you could get negative 73% war source costs for flipping other people's religions through war, which is kind of really cool from a roleplay perspective. And I love that this one is like more roleplay focused. You had to know that the Forbidden City was going to be a monument. It was actually constructed right around 20 years before EU4 starts. So it starts as the noteworthy tier, gives mandate growth and yearly absolutism. These both boost up and you get a prestige decay modifier added. And then finally, all 3 are boosted a little bit. To tell you the truth, quite a modest monument, but I like that it's fitting for the mandate growth, obviously. Another one that you had to know was going to be here, Hagia Sophia, constructed as a church by Justinian. It was eventually taken over by the Ottomans to become a mosque, and they're the ones that added the minarets that you may be familiar with. It starts at Tier 2 at the beginning of the game, and Tier 1 it would be 0.5 and 0.25 tolerance for true faith and heretics. That goes up to 0.5 and 0.5 plus clergy loyalty, and then 1 and 1 plus loyalty. Now, one thing that I didn't mention with the Forbidden City is that you have to keep Confucianism in the province. This one requires that you are either Orthodox, any sort of Muslim, or Coptic. I'm not certain why Coptic floated in there. You can't be any of the other Christian religions, but you can be Orthodox, Coptic, or any sort of Muslim, and this will work. Otherwise, it won't. All right, so this one has caused a little bit of controversy because of where it's placed. Harmandir Sahib. So this hopefully will be moved maybe by the time you see this or shortly after at the beginning when they first start patching 1.31. But truthfully, historically, it's like right here, somewhere around here. But they've got it in Samarkand. It's basically even reflected that you need there to be a Dharmic religion. This is a temple for Sikhism historically. So kind of an odd situation of where it's at, but maybe that's just a bug or a mistake. Not a big deal. If you can get it turned on, though, it gives local unrest and then a global monthly autonomy change modifier. These scale, and you also get some unrest in the area, and then they just scale a little bit more. The 0.075 monthly autonomy is pretty decent, actually, because it will work right away. But yeah, a little underpowered, and it's weird where they're putting it. a historic triple nave Stave church, the largest in Norway. The Heddal Stave church sits on the southern coast of Norway, and according to legend was erected in just 3 days. Now, the monument in EU4 receives local unrest and a stability cost modifier bonus. The scale and a missionary maintenance cost modifier is added at tier 2, and then at tier 3 these all three scale a bit. Now, in my opinion, this is a little underpowered, but it's not bad to have some underpowered ones. They just need to debuff some of the biggest ones, in my opinion. One weird thing about this church, though, is that you have to have some sort of Christian religion in the province for it to work. It's kind of disappointing that this will not work if you're doing like a 4 Odin run and you do Norse with a custom nation. This monument is going to stop working. So keep that in mind. On to the Himeji Castle. Now located in Yamana in Harima province at the beginning of the game, the Himeji Castle was actually a hilltop fort built in 1333, and then rebuilt as the Haimiyama Castle in 1346. It was only rebuilt later into what is known as the Himeji Castle, I apologize. So tier 1 here is local unrest -2 and local defensiveness. Later it's going to go up on both of those accounts, and then finally it's going to add local unrest and defensiveness in the area plus some Bushi estate loyalty. I'm not quite entirely certain what this is for. Early game, no one's going to be able to afford to upgrade this thing when it's like the warring states and you're actually needing some defensiveness and those sorts of things. And late game, Japan's not going to want to use their money on this because their navy keeps you off the island, so why would they waste money on these? So I'm kind of confused what the point of this castle is. Alright, so the first monument that we come to in an uncolonized province is the Inukshuk, pluralized as the Inukshuk. It's a man-made stone landmark constructed by the Inuit people and other indigenous people of the Arctic region of North America. And it exists here in the province of Harmandir. And basically, once you're able to colonize it, whoever you colonize as might change its name, but you get a monument at tier 1. You get max promoted cultures at the noteworthy tier, 2 of them at the significant level, plus cost of advisors with rule of culture. And then the third, you get 3 max promoted cultures, a flat advisor cost -10%, and a cost of advisors with ruler's culture 20%. Now, keep in mind, this one can be moved, but if you move it out of a province that's totemist, or you convert the province from being totemist, this monument will stop working. So it's fun to collect them, but it might be good to keep it where it's at and just utilize it. Also keep in mind, if you form a colonial nation, the monument goes to the colonial nation. Monuments and their bonuses go to whom directly holds the province, not their overlord. The Jokhang Temple is considered as the most sacred and important Buddhist temple in Tibet. Originally constructed in 652, renovated for the last time in 1610, nearly 950 years later. It is located in the Lhasa province in EU4. It starts at tier 1, and it gives you religious unity and missionary maintenance cost, which upgrades and adds a +1 missionary strength, and then upgrades again, boosting all of those, including the religious unity, all the way up to 75%. Now, this monument requires that you have Theravadan Buddhism in the province. It starts as Vajrayana Buddhist. So, again, Vajrayana is really getting kind of shafted with these monuments. You've got to have Theravadan in for almost every single one that has a Buddhist requirement. It has to be Theravadan, not Vajrayana. So that really sucks. But once you can use this, if you can get somebody to flip this to this is going to be real good for, I don't know, one faiths. Down in Pegu, we have the Kanbawzathadi Palace, or Golden Palace, built in 1566. Burned down in 1599. Apparently it's quite important. They've restored it in the modern day, and it's a historical site for the Tangu dynasty. In the game, it's right next door to one in Dagon, but we'll talk about it a little bit later. And it focuses on diplomatic bonuses. Diplo reputation and Diplo advisor costs is what it starts with. You can upgrade that by doubling the Diplo reputation, adding a relation, and doubling the advisor cost reduction. And then in the Magnificent tier, it actually switches the Diplo advisor cost to just a straight, flat, to minus 25% advisor cost for all 3 types. The reputation goes up to 3, and the relations goes up to 2. Quite powerful for a vassal play, but not super overpowered. I think this is still pretty strong. In the province of Kiev, we have the Kiev Pechersk Lavra, a historical Orthodox church that was important in the area. This monument obviously requires that you have Orthodox in the province, although you do not have to be Orthodox yourself. As you can see, Lithuania is getting the bonus, even though they can't really use it. Yearly Patriarch Authority is what the monument starts with. And then at tier 2, you get a +1 tolerance of the true faith. And then at tier 3, the tolerance of true faith and the yearly Patriarch Authority are both doubled, and the clergy like you a little more. This actually could be quite useful for Orthodox nations, or if, I don't know, Lithuania flips Orthodox in the pursuit of becoming Ruthenia or something like that. That could be really good. In my opinion, the strongest monument in the New World is Machu Picchu. If you're unfamiliar with Incan citadel city in what is now Peru, the province of Abancay in EU4, it starts at tier 1 and gives you idea cost minus 5% and some clergy loyalty. This upgrades to idea cost minus 10% and monthly administrative power. And then that upgrades to idea cost minus 15% and retains the administrative power. This is really good. The Incan start has a lot of gold mines. You're going to need the admin power to lower the inflation. The idea costs are going to help you get ahead on ideas so that you can save some monarch points for deving, especially in a multiplayer sense. This start, which was already quite strong, just got a lot stronger. Built between 353 and 350 BC, the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus in modern-day Turkey was a tomb to Mausolus and his sister wife Artemisia II of Caria. It was so much of an architectural triumph, and it was part of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, that we now refer to any tomb that is above ground as a mausoleum. That's how influential it was. It was destroyed by a series of earthquakes just prior to the start of EU4, and that's why it starts unconstructed. But if you are able to construct it to tier 1, you'll get the idea cost minus 5%. This scales to idea cost minus 10% plus tech cost minus 5%. And then it's a tech cost minus 10 and idea cost minus 15% at the magnificent level. Obviously a huge buff to the Ottomans, because of course they needed a buff, right? Back to the New World, in the province of Tachiini, in the Colorado Plateau, we have Mesa Verde. Now this is a term used for this entire region of what is now the United States, and it's also a large national park in the southwestern corner of Colorado. Mesa Verde here refers to the cliff dwellings that the Puebloan people made in this area, most notably the Cliff Palace, along with many other structures carved into the cliffs and the rocks. The name itself, Mesa Verde, means green table, and basically refers to the greenery on top of the cliff, not really the structures underneath it. The monument in EU4 starts at tier 1 once you have colonized the province, gives you local unrest and tech cost modifier. This upgrades to local unrest, tech cost, and idea cost, and then later becomes a larger local unrest plus 10% tech cost and 10% idea cost. Now, keep in mind that this one does need a totemist religion in the province. And if it goes to a colonial nation, if they convert it, it's going to go away as well. So you might want to just leave this province alone and just reap some of those tech and idea costs. Way down in the South Pacific, in a province called Rapuani, that is being seen as a different name here because we colonized it as the French, we have the Moai statues, or the Easter Head Island statues, which give you tolerance of true place plus 0.5 and religious unity plus 0.25%. This upgrades by doubling both of those and giving you some nobility loyalty. And then finally tops out at tolerance of true faith and heretics plus 1 and a 65% religious unity modifier. Now this is amazing, but keep in mind that these statues have to be in a province that has Polynesian culture. Most of these, if they have a requirement, it is the religion. But in this case, it's the culture. It has to be in the province. You are able to relocate these. These are one of the few that you can relocate. But if you do pull this to your capital is not Polynesian, they will shut off. So keep that in mind. Making our way back to Japan once again, in the province of Kai, we have Mount Fuji, the quintessential geographical landmark of Japan, in my opinion. It's been in a lot of art. Very beautiful mountain, Mount Fuji. Starts at tier 1. Obviously, you're not going to build a mountain, and gives you dev cost minus 10% and monthly devastation reductions just for the province. Those upgrade and then give you a tax modifier for the province. And then later you get some area modifiers of the same tax and monthly devastation and a yearly 0.5 prestige. Now, this one's interesting. It's actually somewhat useful early on for Takeda, but I don't know if you're actually going to want to upgrade this later. And it's also the only monument that I believe is strictly just a geographical landmark, which is kind of interesting. Moving over to India, in the province of Chaul, we have the Murud-Janjira Fort. It's actually a fort on an oval rock out in the harbor, I believe, about here. And in EU4, it's set up for naval bonuses in the game. So if you're able to build it, you're going to get force limit and maintenance modifiers for the Navy. Upgrade it, you're going to add a yearly naval tradition along with boosting the force limit and naval maintenance. And then at the magnificent level, you're going to have 50% naval force limit, 20% naval maintenance reduction, and a 1 yearly naval tradition, which is pretty good for the Navy. I think it would be really useful for somebody like Portugal or Britain if they're colonizing and taking over this area, but it could also help the Indians build a navy to maybe contest. Notre Dame de Paris, Our Lady in Paris. The Notre Dame Cathedral still stands to this day. You may have heard about it in the news a few years back. It got lit on fire, and they're still fixing it up. At this point in history, though, it is at almost the height of its prominence. So it starts at tier 2. It begins with 0.5 tolerance to the Jew faith and 0.5 yearly papal influence. These both upgrade to 1. And then at the magnificent level, they both upgrade to 2. Modest, but pretty useful, and encourages France to stay Catholic, which it did historically. So I think this is a really good role-play focused kind of monument. In the modern day, the capital of Greece, Athens, is in pretty bad shape in 1444, but they did get the Parthenon, historically a temple to Athena. The Parthenon is obviously one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world and was eventually blown up by the Venetians when they were fighting the Ottomans, which is a fun story. But in 1444 and EU4, it starts at tier 1. Local unrest and administrative advisor cost minus 25%. This will upgrade to 50% on your admin advisor, and then finally you get a monthly admin point, just like you got a free level 1 admin advisor on top. So, nice, not super overpowered, but the fact that the Ottomans are probably going to end up with these 3 monuments here, it's quite. The Ottomans are set up quite well with monuments, in my opinion. Someone who probably isn't is Portugal. They do get the Pena Palace, known as the Palacio de Pena. It's a Romanticist castle in Lisbon, Portugal. It was originally a monastery. It was reconstructed after an earthquake, and it was actually the last place that the last queen of Portugal stayed in before she went into exile. This is their palace. But it's pretty modest with its bonuses in EU4. It gets a local province manpower modifier of 25% plus a little bit of nobility loyalty at the beginning. Then it goes to the area to 15%. So meaning Lisbon's manpower actually got reduced, even though that's not that good of a modifier already. And then the area comes up to 20%. So this area gets 20% manpower for you investing 30 years and 3,000 ducats. Compared to some of the other modifiers here, this is almost laughable in how weak it is, in my opinion. In the desert of what is now southern Jordan, we have Petra, the really cool city that was carved into the rocks. And it starts in EU4 at level 1. It's got Diplo reputation and envoy travel time minus 20%. It upgrades to Diplo reputation plus 2 and envoy travel time minus 25%. And it ends with 2 Diplo reputation, 1 Diplo relations, cost to fabricate claims, and envoy travel time. It's actually pretty nice. I really like this one. Also, you can utilize it whether you're Christian or Muslim, but you can't be anything else. So keep that in mind. I think this one is a boon to the Mamluks at the beginning. Does it make up for all the ones that the Ottomans get? Especially with the fact that the Mamluks can't use the one in their capital that we'll talk about in a little bit? I don't know. Now back to Majapahit, where we already talked about the Borobudur Temple. We're going to talk about the Prambanan Temple. Now this one requires that you have Hindu or another Dharmic religion like Sikh in the province. You get dev costs and missionary strength, 5% and 0.5%. That upgrades to 10% dev costs and a full missionary strength. And then that upgrades to 15% dev costs, 2 missionary strength, and a missionary. In my opinion, this monument is far and away stronger than this one up here. And since they contradict each other, you can't have them at the same time because of their requirements, I'm going to be going for this one every time. And I don't know what they were thinking when they took the game balance there in. They could have saved some of their dev time and put a nicer monument somewhere else. I don't know. Maybe they have a reason for that. Maybe it's in the mission tree. Maybe they like that. Just a few provinces over in Bali, we have the Pura Bekasih. It starts at tier 2 at the beginning of the game, although you'll probably be integrated pretty quickly, so it's going to go down. This is a temple that's nearly 1,000 meters up on the side of a mountain in Bali. At tier 1, it gives you stab cost. At tier 2, it gives you stab cost minus 10%. And then at tier 3 or magnificent level, it adds on a -1 national unrest and stab cost minus 15%. It's not bad. That will actually save you more admin over the course of a campaign than you really think it would. But yeah, underwhelming. Not bad though. Now in Cairo, we of course have the pyramids. The Pyramid of Cheops, otherwise known as the Great Pyramid of Giza, that quintessential Egyptian pyramid, is here in the Cairo province at the beginning of the game, and can give you tech costs minus 5 and 10 and 15%, plus idea costs and monthly admin, Ulema loyalty equilibrium. It's a really good monument. The problem is, you may see there, is in pagan religion group, not the province. You have to be in the pagan religious group as your national religion. So Mamluks is almost never going to be able to use this. There may be a situation in MPs where people are going to try to get Mamluks killed so that somebody can take this who has a pagan religion. I don't know. It's real restrictive. So it's interesting. I hope this wasn't an attempt to balance out all the ones that the Ottomans are going to get, because they can't really even use it. But if you could use it, that's really strong. Famously, the heart of the Timurid dynasty under Tamerlane, the Registan Square in Samarkand is part of the capital of Transoxiana in 1444, and requires the province to remain Sunni to function. The bonuses for it are modest and start at tier 1 with 0.5 prestige decay and 0.1 monthly piety reduction. This goes up to a -1% prestige decay, 0.2% monthly piety, and the cost to fabricate religion through war minus 10%. Finally, it's got 2% prestige decay, 0.3% monthly piety, cost of enforcing religion through war minus 20%, and war score versus other religion minus 15%. Now, it's important to note that the province need only remain Sunni. If you decided to go Zoroastrian Timurids to get Baku Ateshgah, you can still use this by leaving this province as a Sunni province. I think it's nice. I think it's reasonable. It's not as good as some of the really massive ones, but those should probably be debuffed before this gets a buff, in my opinion. In Rome, we of course have St. Peter's Basilica, the quintessential Renaissance-style church built in the Vatican City. It's a famous place for pilgrimage for Catholics and is in use by the Pope to this day. It was founded in 1506, so it obviously starts as tier 0 in the start of the game. At the noteworthy tier, it gives 0.5 papal influence, and the clergy like you a little bit more. In significant tier, you get 1 yearly papal influence and 10% clergy influence, and the clergy like you a little bit more. And then at the magnificent tier, you get 3 yearly papal influence, 10% curia power cost, and 15% clergy influence. The thing here is, it only works if you're Catholic, obviously, and the province is Catholic. But the Pope doesn't use curia powers, so this actually globally modifies curia power costs in a way that the Pope doesn't really help. This helps the rest of Catholicism, which is interesting, and I wish there were more like this that did global changes over and above you, and not just helping you or hurting you. They helped everyone of, say, your religion or your culture groups or that sorts of thing. Sankin-kotai was a policy of the Tokugawa shogunate in which daimyo were required to live 1 year in their home and 1 year in Edo at a place that is in EU4 known as the Sankin-kotai Palaces. This was an attempt to assert control over those daimyo to help centralize power in the country. The monument in EU4 receives prestige plus from land battles plus 5% and war taxes minus 25% cost. Later, the prestige and war taxes are doubled, and you get a general cost minus 15% added. And then at the final tier, all of those are increased. You get 15% prestige from land battles, minus 75% war taxes cost, and minus 20% general cost. This is interesting. You're going to save a good chunk of military monarch points here if you continue to use war taxes after the Age of Discovery, which you might do if they're only 25% cost. So yeah, I'm interested in this one at least. I don't know if it's going to be super good, but I would probably build it if I was Japan. Also known as the Great Dragon Pagoda or Golden Pagoda, the Shwedagon Pagoda is the most sacred Buddhist temple in Myanmar or Burma. In the game, it is located in the province of Dagon and gives modest bonuses centered around unrest. It starts at tier 1. You get local province unrest of 1 plus some monthly karma. At tier 2, you get unrest in the province plus unrest in the area and the karma, and your monastic orders like you a little bit. At tier 3, the local and area unrests are 2. You get some legitimacy and more karma plus more monastic order loyalty. Now, keep in mind that you must be Theravadan Buddhist for this monument to work, at least in the province. And you have to have Theravadan Buddhist as your national religion to get the karma bonus, obviously. Most people are aware of Stonehenge and what it is. Prehistoric monument in the southern England. In EU4, it's in the province of Hampshire. Consists of many large stones in a circle and is likely used historically as a calendar, as it's oriented towards the sunrise of the summer solstice. Radiocarbon dating suggests this thing may be as old as 5,000 years. In EU4, it's really unable to be used unless someone who is pagan, that their national culture is pagan, takes the province, or takes it and moves it back to their capital. You can move it to your capital pretty early as England, but it doesn't really do you any good to move it because you can't get the benefits out of it. Now, if you are able to get the benefits out of it, it starts at 0.5 missionary strength and 0.5 tolerance to true faith. This scales only in the 3rd tier, which I found very interesting. It's the same in the first 2 tiers, and then the 3rd tier is the same as well, except it just adds 1 missionary. So this one is a little confusing. I think it's intended that you never use this, and it's just fun that there's a useless, maybe there's some events tied to it or something like that, but I don't know why you would ever mess with this. Unless you pull off something like a Sunset Invasion with the Aztecs or something, and you come steal Stonehenge. That would be kind of fun. An ivory white marble mausoleum located in the province of Central Doab in EU4. The Taj Mahal is arguably the most famous example of Indian architecture in the world. It was commissioned in 1632 by Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan as a tomb for his favorite wife, Mumtaz Mahal, and it also serves as his tomb as well. And apparently it's the centerpiece of a 42-acre complex, which includes a mosque, great house, and formal gardens. The bonuses in EU4 for the Taj Mahal are fairly modest. 1% prestige decay, that upgrades to 1.5% and a local unrest of -2. Then you move into yearly prestige plus 0.5, prestige decay -2%, and the same local unrest -2. But as you see there, the religion in the province also has to be Sunni for it to work. Not any sort of Muslim, not Muslim and something else. It has to be Sunni. But you don't have to be. So later, if you're a colonizer and they've already turned this Sunni, you'll still get it to work if you take it. Now, there are many temples of Confucius that exist across China, but the most prominent one in Khufu is the one depicted here in the Yanzhou province in EU4. It starts at tier 1 in 1444. It gives you 0.25 yearly prestige and 0.25 yearly harmony increase. Plus, if you were to have this go down and come back up, you'd get 5 Shizu estate loyalty. Then that goes up to 0.5 yearly prestige, 50% religious unity, and a yearly harmony increase of 0.33. Plus, the Shizu like you a bit more. And then if you fully upgrade it, it's +1 prestige, 75% religious unity, yearly harmony increase of 0.5, and the Shizu like you by a good bit more. Now, keep in mind that this is tied to Confucian in the province. If you are not Confucian yourself, you will obviously not get the harmony increase bonus, but you can still get the religious unity and prestige. That means this is one of 3 provinces. We've looked at one of the others, and we'll be looking at another soon, that have a massive religious unity buff. The Moai statues was +65%. This one is +75%, and there's another that has +75%. This could be really good for a one faith, where you can massively take a bunch of land and it not hurt you while you convert it. You just convert stuff like this a little bit later. At its peak, the largest pre-Columbian city in the Americas, and today its ruins are the historic center of Mexico City. Tenochtitlan was a city-state built on an island in what was then Lake Texcoco in the Valley of Mexico. It was the capital of the Aztec Empire from sometime in the 1300s until it was captured by the Spanish in 1521. In the game, it starts in Tier 2. If you were to have it at Tier 1 for some reason, you have -10% local construction costs and a possible building slot, so an additional building slot in the province. This upgrades to 15% construction costs and 10% dev costs. Now, these are local only for the Mexico province. But at Tier 3, the 15 and 20% and plus 2 building slots on the province, plus a 5% local dev cost in the area. Now, Machu Picchu outscales this thing massively. But it is nice because there's a bunch of gold in this state. So deving that is obviously really good. You're going to do it anyway, so you might as well save some points. On to the Grand Palace of Bangkok in Bangkok. It's their most famous landmark, but it wasn't built until 1782 historically, which I think is reflected by the bonuses. Yearly absolutism plus 0.25 and governing capacity plus 10%. Pushes to 0.5 yearly absolutism, 25% governing capacity, and vassal force limit plus 30%. And then you get an AE reduction and a boosting to the other 3 already existing modifiers. This is obviously for later game, maybe mid-game actually. And I think it's a decent monument for the area. I like it. Now, we should have known that the Great Wall of China was going to be one of these monuments. It's one of the most massive structures human beings have ever built. It's in Ningxia at the beginning of the game, and actually requires that it's Chinese culture for it to be turned on, which Ningxia starts as Mongol culture. If you are able to turn it on, you get garrison growth in the province and local defense in the area. These are boosted to 15 and 10%, and then later they get boosted to 20 and 15%, and you get a global blockade impact on siege +1. It's a little out of place because I think they took away where blockade impact on siege affects inland sieges a few patches ago, but maybe this one does. I don't know. But yeah, not bad. You can turn the area into a fort line on the Mongols, but you probably just kill the Mongols. And if you are the Mongols, you're going to kill the Ming. And you can't use this because it's Mongol culture, and you won't want to convert it over to Chinese culture. So, little weird, but kind of fun that the Great Wall of China's in. More formally referred to as the Moscow Kremlin, the Kremlin is one of 5 Russian citadels and by far the most famous. The name Kremlin means fortress inside a city, and in the modern day it has become a word to describe the Russian government in the news and stuff like that. The Kremlin monument in EU4 is of course in Moscow and starts at Tier 1, gives local manpower modifier 15% and local defensiveness plus 15%. Later, those are buffed to 20 and 25, and then far later, you get a own provinces and area of 15% local defensiveness, regiment cost globally minus 10%, and then the final buff to the local manpower and defensiveness. Obviously not super OP, but pretty nice because Russia's big problem in wars is not that they need manpower or, that sort of stuff. They need to defend their capital. Their capital is in a crappy place. Even if you move it here, it doesn't matter. Most of the time, their capitals are having problems. Now, back over to England, they actually do get to use a monument. One of their monuments is actually usable to them, and that is the Tower of London. If you're unaware, the Tower of London is a historical castle on the northern bank of the River Thames in London that was used for high-profile political prisoners at several points throughout its history. It starts at Tier 1 with local defensiveness plus 25% and 0.5 yearly army tradition. It adds 0.5 prestige in the second tier, but doesn't mess with any of the other modifiers. And then in the third tier, the army tradition and prestige are doubled to +1. Not super impressive, but also not a bad thing to have. Hopefully you don't have to use the local defensiveness, but that army tradition is pretty nice to have just right away. Back to Paris for a second time, and the last monument we'll be looking at before we look at the canals. Versailles was established by the French king Louis XIV in 1682 and became a symbol of the absolute monarchy of France before the French Revolution. It is not built at the beginning of the game, obviously, but when it is established at Tier 1, you're going to get a national tax modifier plus 10%. That's going to be buffed to 15% plus an income from vassals plus 5%. And then at Tier 3, you get the only negative modifier from any of the monuments that I could find, +1 local unrest in the area, which is not that bad. And then you get 20% tax and 10% income from vassals. Obviously, tax doesn't scale very well, so this is not the best thing. But it is nice. I really like the roleplay aspect of that. You get local unrest because Versailles is too opulent, and the poor peasants realize that they're starving because you are wasting money. I actually really like that. All right, so let's talk about the canals. First one that we're going to look at is the Kiel Canal. So once you have Admin Tech 22 and enough money, which I've obviously cheated in here, you can build the Kiel Canal. You can either click this and it'll center on the provinces that are involved, or you can go into here and start the construction here just like you did before by clicking this while you have those sorts of things. You need these 2 provinces for the Kiel Canal, but it's going to be produced in the province of Holstein. So we do this, you see it's actually getting built here, right here. So the Kiel Canal is going to take 10 years to build. But the really cool thing with how the canals work now is if you save up the money to do these, 5 of these, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you have enough to finish it. We just unpause the game, and it's done. It's done at Tier 3, which gives you local trade power plus 50, a flat 50 trade power in the Lübeck node there, plus 5% global trade power. Plus, if we wait a few until the end of the month, we will get the +1 stab and some prestige for finishing the monument, which is something that doesn't just work for the canals, it works for every monument. You get a chance. It's got a mean time to happen of I think 8 months. That will eventually, there it is. You gain 1 stability for making your monument. So that's one thing that you need to add into every calculation of it if you're going to build these monuments up. It's modest as well compared to some of these modifiers, but a full stab If you're at 2 to 3, that can be worth upwards of 200 or more admin points. So that's a nice little bonus. Plus, obviously, we now have the ability to open this. It can go down in tiers if this province is taken away. And if we were to say release Dithmarschen, the canal still works. Even if this guy wasn't a guy that I am an overlord of, the canal continues to work. Based on who owns this province is the one that's going to get the bonus. Now, the Suez Canal is very similar. For the Suez Canal, you need both of these provinces, and it will be constructed in this province. It shows up once you have Admin Tech 22, and you can take the event or the decision here. Click this, you start producing it. You can finish it off with another 1,500 monies, and boom, you've got the same modifiers. It has the same picture. It's the same thing for all three, except this one costs you 20,000 to start it, and the one in Panama costs you 30,000. Now, the only difference for the Panama Canal, besides the fact that you need 30,000 ducats to start it instead of 10 or 20 like the other two, is that all you need is Panama itself. Click that, you reload the province a few times to get it to show up, and you can finish this with time, money, or manpower, and bam, you got the Panama Canal. Same way, same modifiers, which I think it's a lot better system than what we had for the canals before. I'd love to see it where you could maybe shut the canal off to your enemies or fortify it, that sort of thing. But that's hopefully maybe later. But I really like the improvement, at least on the canals. And there we are. That's all the monuments as they exist in 1.31 at launch. Let me know what you guys think. Hopefully this video isn't the hour and a half that I'm afraid it's going to be. I haven't edited it up yet. I've just recorded it. I'm doing this little outro, and then I'm going to start. I'd be interested to know what you guys think about the monuments and whether you think they're overpowered. Do you have any good ideas for new monuments or different monuments they could do, or maybe what they could use the monuments for? Besides the Hagia Sophia and adding the minarets thing, I think modifications could be pretty cool. And them affecting religion groups, or even having negatives, more like Versailles and those sorts of things could be good additions. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks for watching the end of the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. How about checking out one of the other videos on the screen? Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you want to see more. It really helps out the channel. Comment down below with other videos you'd like to see, or head on over to the Discord. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.